Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dirty Podcast. It's been just about a year since our last episode. And so, in bringing in with the new regime, we got a couple of Dirty Diggler podcast OGs. We got Taylor and Tommy Johnson, the two handsomest twins in the Solana and greater crypto ecosystem, to come on and talk about their new Exo Technologies premium dev shop. Boys, how you doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having us.
Yes. It makes sense to have you guys on here to help kick this off. But for those people in the audience that may not know who you are, if they've lived under a rock, tell us who you are. How'd you get started in Solana?
Goes back to fall of 2020. Maybe even summer of 2020 is when we first spun up like a GitHub repository focused on Solana. We entered the first Solana DeFi hackathon and took first place alongside Mango Markets. Been building on Solana ever since. So it's been here for 4.5 years, a little over 4.5 years now.
Yeah.
So both long-time engineering backgrounds, have been in crypto for quite a while. Started experimenting on EVM back in 2016, 2017, and then saw Solana and was like, wow, this is just such an obvious thing for us to start dabbling with. And so shortly after mainnet launched, we were one of the first couple developers, community developers, actually experimenting with building things on Solana. And it was certainly, chewing glass back then.
Yeah, you guys just don't look that old. Name drop in 2016 Ethereum, I just don't see it. But, I guess the proof's...
Man. We're over 30. We're baby face.
The proof is in the GitHub. It's okay. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
It's on chain. All right. Well, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about this new opportunity, this new endeavor? What is Exo Technologies?
So we're a premium dev shop focused on Solana development, mostly focused on on-chain development, low latency backend indexing and whatnot. So we kind of view ourselves as either, the Solana experts that you need to bring in to go multi-chain or migrate to Solana, or expanding engineering capacity if you have a bunch of initiatives that you want to hit.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we come at it from like a founder perspective. So we have obviously a long history of we won a hackathon, we raised funding, we set up all the legal structures, we dealt with the regulatory issues. We can get into that later, and pivoted a bunch of times. We've launched many different things to production on Solana. And so when we were shutting everything down we had done previously, we were starting to think about like, oh, let's take a job, and realize there was like a massive gap, and there was a ton of strong Solana related teams or organizations looking to hire us. And we figured, why don't we just like build out a dev shop to kind of work with many different companies instead of just going to a single organization. And so that's kind of where like Exo Tech really started. And so we bring that like founder mentality to like our clients. We help, we do mostly development, we do a little bit of research, and then we also help out on strategy. We can do it all. It's just there's clear demand on the development side right now.
Full R&D. That's sweet. Can you tell me a little bit about your clients?
We've got a handful of clients. So we have a few long-term clients. Jito Foundation, we've been working on some of their LST-related smart contracts. We've been working on Tip Router and their NCN for MEV distribution. We work with Solana Foundation and other institutions that they're dealing with on RWA, on-chain compliance infrastructure. We have Pye Finance, which is an early stage company doing liquid staking bonds on top of Validator's native stake. And then we have a bunch of like short-term stuff we pick up. Taylor, maybe you want to talk about some of the projects that we've contributed to in the last 6 months.
Yeah, we've got a lot. It would take over the whole podcast to rattle them all off. But, working with DePIN teams, helping them with the tokenization strategy and building out, staking programs and whatnot. We're working with SocialFi teams, helping them build their on-chain tokenization platforms and such. And then we're also working with some, more original teams that have EVM deployments but want to move to Solana and want to go multi-chain. And so we come in as the Solana experts and help build them out their, on-chain programs, as well as some low latency infrastructure.
That's sick. So you guys are essentially saying to teams, you have an idea and you need to outsource the connection to the blockchain. What are the balls you're leaving in their court, and what are you taking into yours? Like, how you approach them?
Yeah. I really don't like the term outsourcing because everyone has like a bad taste in their mouth of outsourcing. So like I try to think of us not as outsourcing, outsourced engineers, but as part of the team and just like an extension of the team extensions. Right. So like we, the way we engage is we get set up in Slack together. We're chatting with your engineers. We're chatting with your product people. We want to understand the product from top to bottom. So that way we can take not just an engineering perspective, but also a founder and product management perspective of, are we building the right thing here? And even if someone has an existing product like on Ethereum, there's a lot of different nuances on Solana that require us to take that first principles approach. So we're always taking a first principles approach, try to come up with the right product and program architecture for Solana. And then, working with the team and, constantly communicating, producing architecture documents, and then also doing a full-on production of their on-chain program. And then if they require, backend services that need to interact with those programs, we'll either help build them or essentially advise them on how to build them, right? Some teams have, proprietary IP that they, don't necessarily want to share with external developers. And so in that case, we'll basically help coach them up on Solana, teach them over the course of our engagement on, the different nuances, RPC infrastructure. We'll even make introductions to infrastructure teams. So that way they have, first class support there. So really just like using all of our connections from being early in the Solana ecosystem to further advance their product and make sure they can get to market as quick as possible, as safe as possible, and with the best product as possible.
I really like that. And I actually really like what you said about you don't like the term outsourcing. And it just brought me PTSD from thinking about my attempts last year, putting a product out and having to hire developers. And it seemed like there was always like a deadline. There was always like, let's try to cram as much as possible in while I have you. And then there was like, you can see them going out the door at a certain time. And so your approach isn't about, let's try to pick a deadline and finish with each other. You're like, let's be long-term partners. Let's help you guys find the success. And then, as you said, like coach you over time and grow together. Is that about right?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely like one type of engagement. Like there's a couple that we've seen. There's like some teams that have come to us with like, hey, we have our own team, but like we're swamped and we have a very clear idea of like what we need. And so if they're like Solana native and they know exactly what they need, and we know like they have a high degree of confidence in that, and it's not like going to be a bunch of scope changes, like great, okay, we'll do a milestone based thing. But we tend to avoid the milestone based stuff because especially if we get to working with like earlier stage companies that we're developing either a longer term relationship with, or we're taking that more founder mentality, strategic approach with them, then like we need to be flexible. So like, cause scope can change. Like I had a client this week and I got on a call with their legal team to discuss like how the smart contract works and flow of funds. And that like drastically changed like some of the instruction sets and how things need to work. And if we're doing very clear like milestone based, like, hey, we're gonna determine what we will deliver up front, and there's like very little room for flexibility, or we have to renegotiate mid, then like it's just not gonna work. So I think most like project based dev shop models here just like won't work when you're trying to take that approach.
How often do you find that when you meet with a team and they have an idea and then you make the initial plan for what the work's going to be, does it like completely change by the time that it's actually like solidified to chain? Because what I found was that where I thought I wanted to start and where I ended up was so drastically different. And like sometimes for the worse and sometimes for the better. Especially like maybe you guys do or don't talk to a lot of very like tech savvy people. You have product savvy people. How can they come to you with a plan that's going to be executed.
To answer the first question, almost all
Yeah.
change. It's very rare that you know exactly what you need up front. And I think the earlier stage the company, organization, or product, the more likely it's going to change. Like we see most of the change with our startup clients. We also see change with, more of like the institutional clients because they have so many different, I don't know what you want to call it, but decision makers, right? Like they have a product team who's focused on what the user wants. They have a legal team and a compliance team that's focused on making sure the products that they're producing are legally sound with the jurisdictions that they're working in and whatnot, right? So you have all these different places that information is coming in. And so it's very difficult to know up front before you start any sort of development or architecture what the end state is going to be. And so that's why we try to focus on, hey, let's just, instead of doing milestone-based engagements, we'll go month by month. We'll make sure, and if you're not happy with the production, you can cancel it. Otherwise, you can just keep it going month by month. That way we can make sure that we're here to flex when you get some new update that needs to change, we need to course correct.
We did have
nice.
one client that was like, that doesn't, if you're going month to month, that doesn't incentivize you to like really hit the deadline. So I was like, well, like our reputation is our business at this point. Like we're going to do it for you. Like we haven't missed the timeline. I know like a bunch of other dev shops like that try to do like Web3 and specifically Solana stuff, like the horror stories of just them never making timelines and being like so drastically wrong. It's just interesting to see.
You're like, how are you going to help us fly this airplane? And when you've delivered it, it's a submarine.
Yes. Exactly.
I guess I wanted to ask, how do you see Exo Tech growing within the industry? And I think in part you've kind of answered it. It's because you want to be long-term partners, with many entities. But is there a cap on how many people you can work with? Where are you guys in your growth curve with the company? Tell me about how you guys see yourselves and Solana or the greater ecosystem moving forward.
Yeah, I think
similar. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ted. We're definitely at a point where like we need to. We're trying to scale. We have to like turn down potential clients. It's a capacity problem with like engineers, and we have a very rigorous engineering hiring process and like interview process. I mean, I think we took like a batch of like 75 candidates and like dwindled it down to like 3 that got to like at least a work trial offer, not even an actual offer in this last batch. So yeah, we have like pretty high standards of what we require because again, like we're not at a point where we can just like hire someone and train them from like scratch on Solana development, Web3, etc. We need someone with at least enough understanding, enough grit to like pick it up, and we can review and coach them, but we can't be teaching them, from the ground up. And so, I mean, where are we going? Like, that's obviously like Taylor and I are starting to, as we get more longer term clients, the plan is to start shifting and delegating more work on the longer term clients to our current engineers on staff. So they can really sink their teeth into something longer term and aren't context switching on a 2-3 month basis. And then that pulls Taylor and I away to focus on growth and hiring and branding and everything else that we need to like really grow this and own the Solana niche. And I think even outside of like owning the Solana niche, like we want to own the SVM niche first and foremost. And then from there we can kind of really go, anywhere. But there's enough of a market in SVM Solana land that it just makes sense for us to like build the business here, at least for another couple quarters, and then go elsewhere.
Yeah, to add to that, I think the EVM market, if you look at dev shops, is relatively saturated. Solana and then now SVM in general, as we've had more, SVM chains, right? You're seeing SVM L2s on top of ETH, pop up. You're seeing SVM chains that are on top of Bitcoin pop up and whatnot. And so, we think that we have, been some of the earliest builders on Solana, which means we're some of the earliest SVM builders. And so we think that's the niche that we want to focus on for the next, few years. And that's, I think, how we really grow our market.
I love that. I need somebody to draw a diagram of the SVM layers on top of Solana and other chains, and like how it triangulates. That would be really helpful.
Maybe we should put that together. I think we should put together like an SVM landscape. Like what are the teams using SVM? I think that would be pretty good.
There we go.
All right, guys. How does Exo Tech win into the future? What does winning look like?
I think winning for us really just looks like we have an army of kick-ass SVM engineers and a really strong, stable business. But then we have this kind of venture studio component where we are have our hands in a lot of different pies and working with early stage companies in a bunch of different sectors. And then I think also getting more involved in the infrastructure side. Like Exo Tech, we've been running our own Solana validator for the last couple months because we're just like super deep in these code bases. It's like, why not get involved in the infrastructure and like support the chains that we're building on? So I think going into like other verticals as well, beyond just trading time for dollars, would be a big win too.
I think Solana has always impressed me with its brain power and the amount of people that have been in the space since the beginning and continue to provide value. No matter how much wealth they may have accrued, they seem to be still very interested in seeing the chain success in all of these avenues. And so you guys both being senior participants, seeing you guys being able to free up your time to be able to think about these greater problems and write about them and contribute to them, pushing that onto future generations developers, which, I mean, you guys are building your own boot camp right now. And so I commend you for that. You're already going down those steps. So congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That point is definitely super important. I think Taylor tries to keep me on that one. Is like, hey, I know we love coding, but like eventually we have to pull ourselves out and do more management and training and business development and writing. So I definitely need to. That would definitely be winning in our book, is if we can get to that point and keep growing.
I mean, 2016 Ethereum, you guys are old men. Eventually you're going to be put out to pasture. So it's, just the way it is.
Every time I go to an event, I feel like the crypto boomer.
Oh, I don't even want to get into that. It's okay. I just got to shave my beard off, and then I look like I'm in my 20s. Yeah. All right, gents. Thanks for coming back for the first re-up of the Dirty Podcast. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, man.
Glad for you to be back.
Yeah, run it back. Peace.